all I can say is that we decided to go down that road and employ a living care company. And as you know, we've been very, very happy with them right from that point until today, you know.
Hi, Stuart. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. How are you?
Good. Welcome to Carecast. This is our second crack at it.
Excellent.
The recording went a bit skew with last time we tried.
Yeah.
That was my fault. Apologies. But very special guest today. You are a client of ours, Stuart, and you've used our service for a year or two, I believe.
Yeah.
And you are gracious enough to come on and tell us about your story, which will be, no doubt, really helpful to other families trying to figure out what to do for the best and what's the experience like. You're smiling now, so obviously you can still make
Yeah.
decisions on things like care and still come out of it relatively unscathed and happy.
Yeah. Thank. Yeah.
But tell us about what sort of led you to the thought, okay, mum might need a higher level of care here or live in care. What was going on at the time with mum?
Yeah, so briefly, when my father passed away in the end of July 23, we were obviously faced with lots of big decisions, and my mum was already beginning early onset dementia. She was pretty okay at that time, but yeah, my mum and dad had another living care company doing the care for him for about a year or so, up to the point when my dad passed away. And for various reasons, we wanted to part company with them anyway, but also the decision was made that we were going to have to put mum into a care home, at least temporarily, while we sold my parents' house in order to fund the care for mum going forward. So we did that, and mum moved into the care home about 3 days or so after the house was sold. And yeah, initially things were fine. It was a very nice place, pretty much the best that we could afford. No real complaints about the place or the staff at all. And she was in there for a total of 9 months, from October 2023 up until July of 24. And as things got further along, particularly post the Christmas, New Year period of that year, we found that my mum was getting quite distressed quite regularly about things that she couldn't really explain. She was having she claimed she was having really bad nightmares. And generally there seemed to be some change in the staff there. And we started to see a couple of things which we weren't that happy with, which we raised. And they said, oh yeah, no, that's not normal. We'll look into it. But anyway, so to cut a long story short, my wife and I had a couple of particularly, bad visits from my mum post-Christmas of that year. And I made the decision after the second one that I was going to talk to my brother about getting mum out, because she seemed to be deteriorating faster than I would have expected her to, based on, what we'd seen in the year or so prior. So,
what sort of things had you picked up on, Stuart?
Well, there were, as far as the staff goes, they brought in some very young staff, I would say probably 18 years old-ish, around that area. And, seeing them on their phones, in the restroom, not as in the client's restroom, not their own restroom where they would take breaks and that, talking to the phone company about issues with having their phone while we were sat there watching things going wrong around us, and things not being dealt with. That was a common thing for a while.
Yeah.
And we did raise...
It's not even as if, okay, they're trying to secretly make personal phone calls at work. They're actually doing it openly.
Oh, yeah. No, there was no secrecy about it at all.
It shows they don't really know sort of what's expected of them, of professionalism and...
Yeah, and just things being ignored as well, and a couple of times we would say, oh, have you not seen what's going on over there? You might want to go and, intervene with that. And I mean, obviously, sadly, because my mum had dementia, which again, at that stage was not terribly advanced, she still had good remembrance of family history and people coming to visit her she would recognize for the most part. But, she just seemed to be almost becoming traumatized, in some way by things that she would try and explain to us that she couldn't then really put her finger on. And as I say, it was just a bit of a there was a deterioration. I think that's fair to say that for a number of reasons, there was deterioration in Mum, and there seemed like there was being some sort of deterioration in the way the place was run, the client level, So I made a decision. I spoke to my brother and my mum's sister, and we collectively agreed that the best thing to do would be to start looking for a place for mum to live, with a living carer or carers, as opposed to being in this care home or any other care home, which kind of, I think in hindsight, I wish we'd just done that from the off, but we'd have still had to relocate my mum somewhere. It took 6 months for the house purchase to go through anyway. So mum would have had to go somewhere while that was happening, regardless. So anyway, long story short,
that was a really big commitment for the family.
Sorry.
That was a really big commitment for the family then to actually go out, find a place,
Yeah.
find the right finances, and then to obviously, because it is a risk making any decision, isn't it? Any change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We were very lucky. We found a lovely bungalow in a very quiet area of Cheshire, a very nice little town. And the first place we looked at ended up being the place that we ended up buying, So we got messed around a little bit with the first solicitors that we chose. So we got rid of them and got another company involved. And after that, it all went very smoothly. And Mum moved in, I think on the 7th of July, 2024, it would have been. Yeah. And she's still there now. Yeah. So it's worked. And obviously at that point was when you guys became involved. And I guess we're going to talk about that going forward.
Well, but obviously as a family, you looked at the mix of where Mum was physically, and that was okay, but the environment, the atmosphere, the morale of the staff and the quality of care just seemed to have gone down pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
Was that just after the pandemic, or
was that, sorry?
Quite a bit after the pandemic, really, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was all gone by that time. Even by the time my dad passed away, that was kind of receding into the rear view mirror, really. I don't remember it being in it that year being much of a big thing still.
Interesting. Wonder what caused it. But then obviously you thought, okay, if we do get the right living carer and a nice place for Mum with the living carer to live, then you're totally getting away from a negative sort of team morale. You can basically turn over a totally new leaf for Mum.
Yeah. As I say, there was just too much drama there. With Mum being on the upper floor of the home, which is where all the people who had mental difficulties were housed, and there were people that were way worse, way much further down the spectrum than Mum was. And luckily Mum did befriend another lady who she was very close with over the time she was there. But you don't need me to tell you, there was always some drama going on, somewhere that was within earshot or eyesight. And, I could see at times my mum was quite, afraid of what was going to happen. And I think, we were visiting for what, an hour, 2 hours or so at a time. You've got another 22 hours of that if you're living there. Yeah,
that background level of stress is very unhealthy. Yeah. It's what people experience. Well, especially if you're if you go to A&E and you're out in a corridor.
Yeah, absolutely. Same as that. Yeah.
Noise and stressful situations and threatening behaviour and maybe dirt, things like that.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, things being thrown, abuse being yelled at people and backwards and forwards. Yeah, all of that, basically. Yeah.
So then obviously you were dependent on the property coming through, which took about 6 months, and it must have been maybe a month or two before that looked like it was going to come through that you started looking at care agencies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How many different agencies did you look at? So I know for a fact some people might look at 10 or 20 and then it down to number, but what sort of number did you?
We only realistically looked at 2, and one of them we had actually already been in contact with when my dad was still alive, because we were looking at changing the living care company that we'd had when Mum and Dad were still living at their house and before my dad passed. We definitely decided that we didn't want to continue with that company. So we had a conversation and they visited the house. And it was Vanguard. I don't mind saying who it was. I'm sure you're aware of them. And the lady that came was very pleasant, very thorough, very knowledgeable, very reassuring, gave us all the literature, prices, everything up and all of that. And we left it when my mum went into the home, because we knew it was going to be, mum might still be in the home now if circumstances were different. But obviously, when we made that decision to get mum out, we did get back in touch with Vanguard, but we also at that point got in touch with yourselves. And I don't actually know. I don't know what it was, but I can't put my finger on it. But I just had a much more of a warm and fuzzy, shall we say, about the living care company than I did about Vanguard. I don't think it was anything to do with the costs. The costs were very similar back then. I don't know if they've changed now, but yeah. And really, all I can say is that we decided to go down that road and employ a living care company. And as you know, we've been very, very happy with them right from that point until today.
Thanks, Stuart. Just going back over what you would have done at the time. So you would have created an account online, filled in your details, and then all of that fatigue, ability, dementia, a bit of a history about her, what she likes and doesn't like, and food preferences and all that sort of stuff to sort of build a picture. We then go through that with you, make sure that it's...
Yeah, that's right. All of that happened. Yeah.
And then what we do...
Very straightforward, very easy, very quick, straightforward and easy. Probably took me about half an hour, 45 minutes, I think, as I recall. Yeah.
And then we're ready to go out to our team of carers. So we take that information, we anonymise it, and then we use it to go to our carers and say, look, would you like to work this family and for this lady? This is where she is. This is when the job begins. How many weeks do you like to do on and off? And then we get a list of applicants, and then we provide you an email for each of the applicants where you get an email, you'll click on the link and you'll get to the carers' profiles. Most of the carers, vast majority now, have videos on their profile, so you can get a bit of
right. Yeah.
Your carers have videos on their profile at the time.
Yeah. All of them. Yeah.
So it gives you a quick way of getting a bit of a feel for someone, and then presumably you probably talk to one or two different people, or maybe two or three carers over the phone.
I think the first time out, when Mum was getting ready to move in, I spoke to 3, as I recall, and it was a tough choice. It really was. I don't actually remember why I chose Marigold, our first that came to live with Mum, but I did. And it was very difficult to choose. They were all very pleasant, lovely people. I had bags of experience, of the type we were, needing, and very mature, very thorough. Yeah, you could just see it shining through in the conversations I had with those initial 3 ladies. And so that again gave us a really good feeling, thinking we've spoken to 3 of them and it's hard to choose between them. That's got to be a good situation.
Yeah. So you picked Marigold, and she just is she still with you? Sure.
Oh, she ended up retiring back in, I think, early October last year.
Yep.
And as in retiring for good. She manages a farm back in Zimbabwe where she lives, amongst other. She does some other work as well. And she was going back to see more of her family primarily. That was the main reason. Yeah. And basically then Gladys took over. Yeah. As we've had some stand-ins as well from you guys when Marigold was back visiting her family in Zimbabwe. And recently Gladys, who took over from Marigold, also went back to South Africa to be with her family over Christmas and New Year. So Gladys came back about 2 weeks ago, and things are going well, going strong. Mum's fine. Mum, again, because her mum was very clingy with Marigold, and she was a little bit upset when Marigold left. But again, inevitably, Mum's dementia is progressing, and we find now that she doesn't seem to notice that much when they have these changeovers. She just kind of just gets on with it. Whereas with Marigold, when she would come and go, Mum would always be asking when she's coming back and if she's coming back and so on. But again, with Gladys, it's seamless. She took over, and it's almost as if there wasn't a changeover. Mum just carried on, no problems. Gladys has been equally as good as Marigold in every respect. And we recently had Nancy, another one of your ladies, take over from Gladys while she went home for a Christmas break. Again, couldn't falter, absolutely fantastic in every respect. We've had 5 now in total, including 2 of the stand-ins that we had when Marigold was first with us. So out of 5, it's 5 out of 5. It really is. I can't think of any. I'm not saying this just for the sake of it because I'm on a video. I'm absolutely adamant that we've had 5 out of 5, and we can't speak highly enough of them. There's nothing to tell between any of them. It's the consistency. It is fantastic. It really is, which is great for mum, obviously, as well,
Tell me a bit about what it's like going into the house now. Obviously, when you went to visit mum in the care home, initially everything was fine. There was good atmosphere. It was calm. She was being looked
Yeah.
at. There was a committed care team, and then you noticed the change. And then obviously it's going to be stressful, even the thought of going to visit your mum in that
Oh, it
situation.
was.
Is something
Even before the drama started, it was a bit of an ordeal. I'll say. I don't mind saying that. Yeah.
And then what's it like going to see mum now? Because I think you go pretty regularly. And
Yeah. It's like going to see your mum. When you go and see your mum, only there's a lady there who opens the door to you, makes you a cup of tea, and then she tootles off upstairs for a bit of a break. And it's like spending an afternoon or an evening with your mum if you were doing that and everything was as normal. The only obviously different thing is that mum's not how she was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but that's not her fault, and we've lived with that since probably 2019 onwards, with my dad first and then obviously mum. I can't put it any simpler than saying, it's just like how see your mum should be. The care is always there if we need them. I mean, my sort of way of dealing with it is when I'm there and the carer's upstairs having a break, if there's a drama of any sort, I'll do my absolute best to deal with it myself, whatever it is, rather than get the carer back downstairs to deal with it rather than me do it. At the end of the day, a lot of families don't go down the road of having living carers. They deal with it themselves. In fact, some close family of ours has recently done the same thing. Or done that very thing. Yeah, it's a pleasant experience, for 90%, 95% of the time, visiting mum is a pleasant experience, and it's kind of how it should be. Barring the dementia, of course,
Sort of natural. What sort of advice would you give to other families considering living care, where they're just wondering what to do for the best and feel that maybe they're worried they're going to make a mistake about?
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely have to probably look at 1 or 2 companies, which is that's as far as we went, although we had experience of another company who had been working with mum and dad before my dad passed away and they moved out of the house. I think you have to give yourself a couple of options because your need might be potentially better met by another company for whatever reason. And other clients may have more specific requirements or an idea of what they want and how it's done and so on. Whereas obviously we were not entire novices, but it was a new situation with mum being in her own home again. So I think you've got to look at a couple of companies, and then when they obviously send you the various profiles, you've just got to be honest about what you want them to do, and obviously extremely clear about the conditions that your loved one has and the problems that those conditions will cause. And as I've said to you already, that certainly we've not come across anything yet in the carers we've had from you guys that has phased them in any way, or they've had to call us and say, oh, this has happened, we don't really know what to do. We've never ever had that. Of course, there's always a little hiccup here and there. That's going to happen, but it's always dealt with 100% satisfactorily before they even pick up the phone most of the time to us. They're just generally, I mean, we have a WhatsApp group that is all informed, everyone that needs to be on that group is on it. So everyone can see at any moment in time, what's going on, where mum is, what she's been doing that day, who's been visiting, etc. And I would obviously recommend that anyone else, has that as well, because it's really good just to keep your sort of finger on the pulse, as you'd want to do in this day and age with the technology we got.
Amazing. Well, thank you ever so much for your time today, Stuart. Really appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure.
You've taken time out of your day to help me out. So thanks. Speak to you soon. Take care.
Cheers.